chào quý vị, chào mừng quý vị đến với chuyên mục Cuộc sống thông minh, chuỗi chủ đề về tư vấn sức khỏe. Thưa quý vị, tai nạn là điều không ai mong muốn xảy ra và không thể dự báo trước. Tuy nhiên, bên cạnh việc giữ gìn và chăm sóc sức khỏe hàng ngày cũng như phòng và khám chữa bệnh, thì chúng ta cũng cần phải có trang bị cho mình một số kiến thức nhất định để có thể xử lý kịp thời trong tình huống mà không may bản thân chúng ta hay những người xung quanh gặp phải tai nạn. Ngày hôm nay chúng ta hãy cùng trò chuyện với bác sĩ Linh Ngô đến từ khoa cấp cứu của Family Medical Practice xung quanh vấn đề này.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Let me just get straight into the first question. So in our daily activities, in our daily lives, for example, like when we are cooking or when kids they are playing, we may get into like some kind of like small accidents, like get ourselves some tiny cuts. So those tiny cuts are easily treated, can heal quickly. But for severe cuts, for example, if someone who works in a factory and they have to work with machines like knives and some tools, and they may get themselves severely cut. So what should we do immediately in such situation?
So first and foremost, it's what we call scene safety. So it's about securing the scene, making sure that the person who's injured is safe and away from the danger and any type of machinery or instrument that has been causing the harm. When the injured person is safe, in a safe environment, and not only the injured person but the people around also supporting, it's about controlling the injuries. So if we're talking about cuts and bleeding, it's about stopping and controlling the bleeding. Easiest way is to apply direct compression to the injury, to the wound. Best is to using something that is clean, a sterile gauze or a cloth, and that way to control the bleeding. It is also a simple method to just, if you have an injury to your arm, to elevate your arm so that the blood flow is not so strong, and just compress the bleeding. Okay. The third point is to prevent any type of infection. So cleaning the wound with either water or normal saline or betadine, disinfecting the wound, would prevent infections in the long run. If we're talking about injuries that are not on the surface, superficial, that can be controlled with just pure compression, pressing on it. If it's a deeper cuts that involves, for example, the arteries that bleed a lot stronger, where you see red blood pulsating. In the medical field, we have something called a tourniquet, which is basically like a belt function, but it can easily be done with a normal cloth and a stick, for example, in which case you would apply this around 5 centimeters over the wound to just stop the circulation and stop the bleeding. This is, however, something that should be done in serious wounds where bleeding cannot be controlled with mere compression.
Right, so of course, like if we want to know more about something like that, it's good to see the doctor, get consultation or something like that. But what kind of resources we actually can reach out to for such information apart from the experts, do you think? Because maybe we don't have the resources that we can reach out to for information to keep our family safe. For example, in such situation, we don't know how to handle generally. So apart from the doctor, apart from the hospital, which sorts of information is it?
Well, it's advisable for everyone to undergo a first aid course. In many countries, for example, if you want to get a driver's license, it's mandatory to have a first aid course, basically talking about minor injuries and first aid methods that anyone can apply at any time. This is something very useful, very responsible to do, just to gain a little bit of knowledge. Most important also to have a little bit more, confidence in handling these situations. If you're a bystander and these things happen, you are in shock, and it's very difficult not knowing what to do, wanting to help but not knowing what to do. So these first aid courses are short courses that cover a lot of these topics that you can apply in your daily life.
Right. So speaking of that, I want to actually ask you about first aid CPR.
Yes.
So it's, to be honest, like in Vietnam in particular, it's not common for someone who is who doesn't work in the medical field to actually have CPR training, right? So I'm not sure about anywhere else.
I'm not very sure why, but I think many people, they don't really see yet the importance or the necessity of CPR training. So what are your thoughts? What do you think of the relevance of CPR training in our daily lives?
CPR is short for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It's a key aspect of any type of first aid treatment, first aid course especially. It's something that you are taught. It's a very simple method. It is used in times where we find someone in cardiac arrest. That means they're not breathing, they have no pulse. You are taught in a first aid course how to identify these situations. Cardiac arrest happens very often due to heart conditions, and this is one of the leading causes of death worldwide. And if you look at the statistics, cardiac arrest happens in the majority of the cases outside of the hospital, for example, at home, where there is no medical provider. That's why it's very important for individuals, people, to understand how to identify this and to apply CPR as soon as possible in order to increase the success outcome. It takes some time. If we have an ambulance system, for example, with us, star 9999, in any case of emergency, you can call our alarm center and we will dispatch our ambulance directly with blue lights. So we're there fairly fast, but in a city like Vietnam, we won't be there within 2-3 minutes. And this time can be used in order to bridge the time and to perform CPR.
So we like individuals and companies, for example, they can learn from hospitals and clinics like FMP, or family medical practices.
Yes, CPR is a very simple method. It's broken down into simple parts that anyone can do and perform with the proper knowledge, and it is safe to do. You will do no harm in any situation where someone requires CPR. There's not much harm you can do. This knowledge can be acquired through some courses that Family Medical provides. CPR for the public, for individuals. And it is something that is advisable for basically everyone, because this can happen at any time, at any place, that someone goes into cardiac arrest and requires CPR.
Right, I think that it has to do with the awareness and education as well.
Yes, yes.
Certified training, right?
There are certified courses, but you do not need to be certified in order to perform this in your daily life. No one will accuse you of doing any harm if you perform CPR to the best of your knowledge for someone in an emergency situation that requires CPR. With every minute that passes where you do not do CPR, where the heart stops, statistically 10% of your outcome is diminished.
In accidents, let's say road accidents, when we may bump our head against hard surfaces or objects, we may get injured, but we don't notice right away if it's not on the surface, but like inside. Let's say internal bleeding. So what signs we should pay attention to, and how can we prevent internal bleeding?
These injuries happen a lot, especially in Vietnam, since the majority of transportation is on motorbike. These injuries can happen. First and foremost is about preventing an injury. That means drive safe, wear helmet protection. In any case of an injury, we follow the simple algorithm of trauma. So scene safety, bring someone in safety, and then go through the steps. If you cannot see any injuries superficially, then you're right, talking about internal bleeding is an issue. It depends on the mechanism of injury, so how fast, what you hit, and how you fell, and depending on the other people around you. But if we're talking about head injuries, primarily it's very difficult to tell. The first signs of head injury, of course, loss of consciousness, any type of bleeding around the head. If you're awake, vomiting, severe headaches, in which case it is always advisable to seek medical attention in a hospital. There are certain injuries that can happen delayed, like you said, so initially you do not see any injuries. That is something that needs to be observed under medical supervision.
So if like our kid, if unfortunately they get into a traumatic accident, and we as parents, of course, we would get panic, right, and overstressed, and we may either overreact or we wouldn't know what to do. Like, it's totally puzzled and wouldn't know what to do. What would be your advice in such situation for parents and for anyone actually, like any adults around the kid?
I think it's normal in a situation like that to be stressed with the situation. First and foremost, I think it's important to try to stay calm. Children see parents as their primary source of comfort in a situation like that. Panic is something that projects onto the children as well. Not speaking of the injury itself, it's always advisable to get some help, some support. Either you have kids or you have other things to worry about, you need to focus on your child. Call a friend, call a family member, or you can call us, *9999. We will advise and we will be there on the spot to help. Stay calm and seek medical attention. And once you're in the medical facility, ask questions. Make sure that all your questions are answered in order to be able to afterwards focus on your child and not feel panic.
So I guess that's all we have for today, but if you would you like to have any extra words, any additional words of advice for the audience?
I'm happy to be here talking about these issues. These are daily issues that affect everyone. I would like to raise here with the awareness for first aid that anyone can provide. This first aid tools can be taught in a course which family medical practice provides as well. And in any case, we have an ambulance system that dispatches, so *999 is the number to call in any case of emergency or any questions.
That's good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thưa quý vị, chúng ta vừa gặp gỡ và trò chuyện với bác sĩ Linh Ngô đến từ khoa cấp cứu của Family Medical Practice xung quanh việc xử lý trong các tình huống khi một người không may gặp phải tai nạn. Cảm ơn quý vị đã quan tâm theo dõi. Hẹn gặp lại quý vị trong các chuyên mục tiếp theo.